This is the Hayes Pantry Podcast, where good food meets good vibes. Let's talk about health that feels good, food that nourishes, products that are toxin-free, and the small changes that make a big difference. Because real wellness starts with what's real. Hello, and welcome to the Hayes Pantry Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Rashmi Hayes, a nutritional therapy practitioner and the founder of Hayes Pantry. I work with overwhelmed professionals who feel like they have lost control of their health. Through real, nourishing food and simple product swaps, I help you find your energy again and feel more in charge of your day-to-day, so you can live the life that you want to be living. A big part of my work is helping you reduce those hidden stresses in your everyday life that you don't even know are affecting your health. And that includes what we put on our skin, as well as what we put on our plates. And I've often been asked what I personally use or recommend. So I started this podcast to share the products and tools that will help you find a healthier, more intentional way of living. Along the way, I'll be speaking to small business owners and brands who value natural, high-quality ingredients and who care deeply about quality, integrity, and helping people live well in a modern world. And today, I am joined by an incredible change maker, Tania Wedin, founder and managing director of Not the Norm Limited, who created Shade, a natural sunscreen made with just 4 ingredients. Yes, you heard that right, just 4 ingredients, no harmful chemicals, no nonsense, just effective sun protection that's gentle on your skin and on the planet. It's a product that I genuinely love and use, and I can't wait for you to hear the story behind it. Tania, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Rashmi. I was very delighted to be invited to come on and talk a little bit more about Shade, so I'm really grateful. Thank you.
Oh, it's so great to have you here. I'm so grateful to you for making the time for me as well. And I thought I would talk about first how I came across Shade, because through my health history, essentially, I was diagnosed with 2 autoimmune conditions about 10 years ago. And that's when I started a process of looking at my diet, what I was eating. And from there, it went naturally to, well, what am I putting on my skin? What's in my toiletries? Because I was having various skin issues, which I largely helped through food, actually, because it matters also how we strengthen our bodies from within. But it also obviously matters what we put on our skin. So did you go through a similar journey, or what? When I was looking out to
Yes.
find...
So I'm actually 53 now, and I started my whole journey into sort of natural health and being very critical about what I was putting on in my food, you know, what I was eating and what I was putting on my skin when I was in my early 20s, actually. And I suffered a bout of candida, and I ended up at an allergy therapist, and she got me to look at every single label, complete elimination diet. So from a very early age, I've always looked at labels. I've always been very wary of processed foods. Anything that has a label on it generally is something that I've scrutinized. You know, if it's a banana, I'm pretty happy. If it's in a pot or something, I've looked at it. And so yes, my sort of default mode was scrutinize everything, and think about everything before you put it on your skin. Don't trust big companies. And then I actually trained as a reflexologist, and I had a practice in London. So again, my career started off in the natural health realm, before I even started Not the Norm Limited. So, you know, my background is very much a sort of very curious, very not restrictive, but really careful, you know, careful about my diet and about what I put on my skin. So yeah.
Yeah, I think when you do start thinking about these issues, you realize that there's a lot more to it. You know, you like you said that you qualified in reflexology, but that is a great approach. But on its own, all of these have limitations. Even nutrition has limitations, and it's about thinking about our bodies as a whole and all the multiple ways of modern day life actually that can impair our health and drag us down.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's, when you're in a sort of a career like that, your clients, they're not just restricted to having reflexology. Their diet comes into question, their lifestyle generally comes into question. So you have to look at the bigger picture, and if you don't know the answers, you go looking for them. So it's a really interesting sort of background that I've got with those kinds of clients anyway, and that was my background. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating field of, it's just life, isn't it? It's just people and life,
Yeah.
and finding what suits us best. So yeah.
Yeah. And I'm finding that there are more and more people out there who are looking at their products, who are, we obviously all know about toxins in the environment. So there's a huge interest in this. So I'm very happy to be highlighting the amazing products that are out there. And your Shade, I have my little cat tub here. I think I was just Googling natural sunscreens and yours came up and I thought this cannot have just 4 ingredients. So I
Yeah,
ordered
people don't
and
believe it.
tried it.
What else is in
Yeah.
your sunscreen apart from those 4 ingredients? Like, well, nothing. Nothing else. That's it.
So tell me how you came, like, how did you come to think, well, I'm going to make my own and it only needs 4? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was, I've got 2 kids. They're not kids anymore, they're both adults. But when my daughter was at school, she was sent home with a letter one summer saying, we need you to send your daughter into school with a sunscreen. And I thought, oh, hang on a minute, we don't really use sunscreen. We're just really responsible and careful in the sun.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really ever applied sunscreen to my kids. I hadn't really put things on them generally anyway. It's sort of, it wasn't in my nature to buy lots of cosmetics for myself even or anything. So I went looking for a sunscreen that I'd be happy for her to take to school and couldn't find anything. Could not find anything. Even the most natural ones, I thought, hang on a minute. Yeah, I'm not sure I'm keen to put that. And then she'd have to apply it herself as well because the school has a no touch policy, so they wouldn't apply the sunscreen for the children. So I just thought, oh my gosh, this is even bigger problem than I thought it was going to be. And so I thought, well, how difficult can it be? I'll just do some research. What do we need? We need a sunscreen active, and then we need something to keep it on the skin, to apply it on the skin with. And that's when I narrowed down to zinc, the non-nano zinc oxide. Initially, I'd researched zinc oxide generally, and then I found there was a nano and a non-nano. I came to this completely blind. It wasn't something that I had chemical formulation training in or anything like that. And then I thought, well, coconut oil is brilliant. And it's just sort of went from there, really. I just thought, I just need some basic things to keep it on the skin. And then beeswax, well, if I melt that down, that's pretty good at sort of being water resistant. So, and it has a sort of stickiness factor to it to keep the product on the skin. And then there were other people doing blogs about making your own homemade sunscreen and things like that, or homemade cosmetics. So I was sort of pulling information from what they were saying. And I started off, I thought, well, I don't want just any old ingredients. It has to be organic, it has to be unrefined.
Yeah.
And then I ended up buying it in bulk because it was cheaper. And I ended up with a huge amount of sunscreen that we were never going to use, And I thought, we've got to put it in something for her to take to school. So I bought a couple of tins on eBay or something and popped it in there. And then I just had all this leftover sunscreen. And she thought it was brilliant. She loved it. She thought it was great. Mum's made my sunscreen
Yeah.
and she was using it at school. And that was, the initial sort of challenge was met. And then I had tons of sunscreen left. So I thought, well, maybe other people want this kind of stuff as well. So I kind of made up some random label. I thought of Shade, and I looked up the trademark, saw that it hadn't been trademarked. So I was on that straight away. And made up some sort of, pretty rudimentary labels and put it on eBay to see if it sold. And oh my God, it started selling and it started getting reviews. And I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done? I actually want this. Well, and that's when I decided to get it tested because I'd only had a sort of hypothetical SPF based on,
Right.
the
Yeah.
18% zinc oxide, and so I thought, well, okay, people want this. Maybe this is where I can go with this. Maybe I can actually promote this. And because I hadn't found my solution anywhere else, I thought, well, other people want it, so let's get it out there and see what happens. And the reviews were so good, and I just thought, okay, so I have to do this, but it hadn't been
Mm.
a plan. And I hadn't really thought it through because now when everybody's out enjoying the sun, I'm stuck in the office. So it's not ideal. So I'm still pasty and white, so I
Yeah.
don't get out in the sun. So yeah, I
Oh,
hadn't thought that
how
one through.
amazing that you kind of fell into it then. Set up
Yeah, yeah, by default
business
rather
by
than
accident.
design.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, but
So,
so tell me, I want to delve more into the actual ingredients themselves because what I love about this is that the coconut oil, the shea butter, and the beeswax are
mm,
ingredients that have been used by traditional cultures for millennia. So was
yes.
that what you were picking up from traditional recipes you saw online, or were
No,
they
I just,
chosen?
I was familiar with coconut oil and beeswax anyway. I'd used it. Not I had used it in other things, but I had had other products that had it in, and, the shea butter was kind of new to me. I hadn't really experienced that. And if anything, that's the problematic ingredient of all of them, only
Oh, right.
because it has so many different amino acids in it that when
Mhm.
it cools, because it's a hot fill product and you mix it and then you pour it and it cools. If you don't cool it quickly enough, then it can go a bit grainy. So you can end up with a product that's not particularly pleasant, skin feel,
Mhm.
but it melts in eventually, but it's not particularly. And we've had one batch that was particularly difficult in that respect. Um, so yeah, it's a slightly problematic ingredient, but in terms of its, you know, properties for the skin, it is amazing. It's very moisturizing. All of the ingredients are essentially edible when it comes down to
Yeah.
it. We all cook, a lot of us cook with coconut oil, use coconut oil in our food. Shea butter is used in Africa as a part of a staple cooking ingredient, and it's used in hair and skin, and there's a sort of myriad of different ways of using shea butter. Um, Beeswax, we eat beeswax. If you have honeycomb, you're having beeswax. And it's used as coatings on various foods and things like that. So it's not an inedible product. And then the zinc, we supplement with zinc. Okay, it may not be exactly the same kind of zinc, but it is, it's a naturally occurring, non sort of, it's a very safe and very gentle product, and we use it in things like nappy creams and, all sorts of different cosmetics.
It's a,
So
like it's a kind of a barrier on the skin, isn't it?
that's
Is
right,
that the
yeah. So
active
yeah, the
barrier?
non-nano zinc oxide will remain on your skin, and it's that ability to reflect the UVA and UVB that's
Hmm.
what we use it for. So it sticks on the skin. It's a protective film. As a result, it can be vulnerable because it is there on top of the skin. So if you're towel drying, or if you're, putting clothes on and off, swimming costumes, or playing in a pool with somebody and you're jumping up and down, and it is vulnerable to being disturbed as a layer, so it does need to be topped up.
Hmm.
But it's not getting into the skin, it's not getting into the bloodstream, and that's what we're trying to avoid, any kind of interruption to the normal balance of our blood, basically, and where that can carry it in the body. So
And that's important with the nano and non-nano, isn't it, as well? Because what's the
yeah,
difference?
so nano is it's an ingredient that it won't show up in the same way. It'll be a lot less obvious on the skin because it does potentially get into the skin. And also nano is the one that has been the focus of much research in terms of coral bleaching and harm to marine life.
Mm.
It's kind of pervasive, and that's what makes it very difficult to sort of argue that that's safe, whereas the non-nano is a much less sort of soluble, if you like, sort of form of zinc oxide. So it's a much larger molecule that sits on the skin and stays there. So it doesn't cause any problems, which is
So it's the
great.
size of the particles, really. Because of its size, it doesn't get absorbed into the skin and it causes
Exactly.
less
Yeah.
damage in the
Yeah.
environment. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And do a lot of other products that have zinc oxide in them, they tend to use the nano form just because it makes it easier
The
to
more
put on?
commercial sunscreens, the more mainstream sunscreens, they will have a nanoparticle size zinc in them. Usually they have some titanium dioxide as well, and the real chemical ones have chemical sunscreen actives in as well, like oxybenzone and avobenzone, things like that.
Mm.
So they're the ones that we're trying to avoid.
Yeah.
They're controversial ingredients. They shouldn't really be put on the skin, in my opinion, but somehow they've managed to get through. And
Mm.
yeah, I mean, probably because they were approved many, many years ago before any studies were really
Yeah.
done, and it's hard to, I mean, they are banning a lot of ingredients nowadays, more ingredients. To be honest, I don't really keep a focus on those things. I know they're things we don't want. I don't
Yeah.
spend an awful lot of time looking into what's happening with them now. I'm
Mm.
focused on a market where people are being a little bit more educated and
Mm.
thinking more about taking responsibility of their own health. So that's my focus, is on people who really want to see a change in what's happening with their own bodies and with the planet, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think also it's important to recognize that there's no perfect solution with any of these. So I know that you mentioned with the shea butter that it's a bit harder. While I'm talking, I'm going to put some on because I know with 100% shea butter, it's quite hard to rub onto your skin because it has
Mm.
that grainy texture. And then the
Yeah.
zinc oxide, I'm rubbing it on now. I
Yeah.
put too much on actually.
You put quite a lot on
Yeah, I have.
there.
Should have. Anyway, I will keep rubbing it in while
Ooh.
I'm talking just to show
Yeah.
that it actually isn't. Because the point that I'm trying to make is that um, the formulations of those other sunscreens, they're all
Yeah.
done for aesthetic reasons or convenience reasons, that it
Yeah.
rubs in, that it gives you a nice, not so much of a shine, or
Yeah.
that doesn't dissolve in water and so on. But there are downsides to that because of
Well,
the lots of different chemicals that they use. And with
mm,
yours, it's just a case of, well, look, it's gone now. It's
yeah.
all rubbed
Yeah.
in.
There's
And
This is the thing, with something that's only got 4 ingredients, there's a compromise. You're always going to have to compromise. There aren't emollients in it. There are no stabilizers. There's nothing to stop that graininess from happening should it happen. All we can do is like rectify it. You've got your tin, you can put it over a hot plate, you can warm it up, you can stir it up and
yeah.
vanish. The graininess is gone and you've got a beautifully smooth, as if it was born yesterday sunscreen. These are the compromises that you have to sort of accept. And my analogy is, it's a sunscreen. Why are you buying it? You're buying it for its properties as a sunscreen. You're not buying it for its sort of, beauty aspects or anything like that. Although, if you've got a sunscreen that works properly, you're not going to have the ugliness of skin cancer down the
Yeah.
line, which is way more ugly than a white cast, for example, that
Yeah.
is one of the main things that people go, oh, it's got a white cast, oh my God, I
Yes.
look terrible. And it's just like, no, you look a little ghostly to start with, but that fades. Um, and it's just sort of having to sort of remind people, why am I buying this? What's the real driver? I am buying this to stay safe. You don't put on a life jacket and go, oh, this makes me look a bit chunky. Don't think I'll wear this. You're wearing a life jacket so you don't drown, right? There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, orange may not be your color, but essentially that it doesn't matter. Just wear
Yeah.
the life jacket. You put on a seatbelt. That's one of my other analogies. Put on a seatbelt. Why are you putting on the seatbelt? To reduce the incidence of an injury should something terrible happen. You don't put
Mm.
the seatbelt on and then drive recklessly and then go, oh my God, I got really injured. That damn
Yeah.
seatbelt didn't work. Well, the seatbelt probably saved you. You shouldn't have driven recklessly. And it's the same with sunscreen. You put the sunscreen on, it's not the be all and end all of safety when it comes to sun. You've got to take some responsibility. When are you going out in the sun? What's the UV index? What else are you doing to protect yourself? How sensible are you being? Are you keeping an eye on how much exposure you're actually getting. Because that's the other
Yeah.
thing, is that people don't understand the numbers. They don't understand what SPF 25 actually means. Let's break it down. Well, it means that in every 100 photons that hit your skin, 4 of them get in, right? So 96% of all those photons will be, dispersed away from your skin. 4 will
Yeah.
get in. But that amount increases over time. It's a cumulative effect. If you reapply your sunscreen, yes, you're making sure you've still got sunscreen on. It doesn't set that back to zero. You still had 4 photons at every 100 hitting your skin. So there
Yeah.
is a period of time which will happen whereby your skin will have had come to a saturation point. And if you
Yeah.
don't know what that is yourself, and you're just relying on the sunscreen protecting yourself, then you can apply it to kingdom come, but you're still
Yeah.
going to be, accumulating the damage from those 4 photons. Um, and by the same token, you're also letting 4 photons get in, which actually helps you to create the vitamin D, to create all
Mm.
the things that are actually going to bring you health. So, but you have to do it in a responsible way. Have to do it in a mindful way, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. I bought sunscreen, I put it on. Oh dear, I've burnt. Must be the sunscreen's fault. And
Yeah.
that's where we have to go, right, so did you check the UV index? Were you out between sort of 11 and 3 in
Mm.
in the pool, in and out all the time? Did you put any hats on? Did you go in the shade? Did you go under the parasol? Did what did you actually do? Because that's where the responsibility lies. It lies with the end user, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I have written a blog post called The Three Variables of Sunscreen. And we're looking at, what are the 3 things? The 3 things are the sunscreen itself. That's a given. That's like, it's tested. It's made to GMP standards. It's exactly the same from pot to pot, person to person is exactly the same. It's actually not a variable. It's a constant. We know
Mm.
what it is, right? So we don't have to really think about it. We just need to know what it is, how it works, and how to use it responsibly. Then we've got the environment. Are you at altitude? Have you got 80% more rays because you're in the snow, in the, skiing? Are you near water? Is it a high UV index day? What's happening? That's your environment. And then you've got the user. What's their, what is their attitude towards sun? Are they sunbathers? Do they just like out in the sun all the time, just absolutely loving it? Or are they really, wary of the sun? Are they in offices for 360 days of the year, and the 5 days they actually go on holiday, they're out there in bikinis and wondering why they're getting burnt? It's very much a user responsibility, checking the environment. Is it appropriate? Is this product appropriate? I don't really sell or drive sales to Shade for situations like skiing, for the simple reason that it's not high enough. It's not high enough protection. You really want something that blocks the sun a lot in the snow. So yeah, I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. There's a lot of responsibility on the user when it comes to things that are ultimately about their own personal safety.
Yeah, and that's great. A fantastic summary for everybody to stay safe in the sun and try and know what's in their product and the limitations of their products.
Mm,
Because even with all the other sunscreens, the advice still is to avoid the sun at the heat of the day and to wear a hat and to reapply. So all of those things still apply, but it's just there is a people for some reason put more focus as soon as you say natural or organic or healthy. People look at that and think, well, they kind of focus on it more and are open to
mm,
finding the vulnerabilities more, whereas
mm.
the cheap product that just applies on easily and then they forget about it, they tend not to question, even though that's
Yeah,
got the longest list of ingredients and is potentially harmful in the water and so on. And this is this
yeah,
kind of mindset that I help people try and talk to people as well in terms of nutrition, because it's the same thing. People think, well, you're
yeah,
making it harder, but it doesn't feel like I'm getting the same benefit, whereas the benefits are more longer term.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, it's actually, there was a guy, I've forgotten his name, but he wrote a book called Atomic Habits. And this is one
Yes.
of the things that has remained with me. Have you heard of the book? Have you read the
Yes. Yeah.
book? Yeah,
I
so
haven't read
he
it, but
talks about an aeroplane taking off, and it takes off on the runway. It's going from one place to the next, obviously, maybe the other side of America, from Los Angeles to New York or something. If you change the direction just by a couple of degrees from that takeoff, he will end up hundreds of miles south of where he's
yeah.
originally meant to be
Yeah.
flying. And it's exactly that. It's like those minimal changes that you can make,
Mm.
have long-term future impacts.
Yes.
If you can make those changes on a daily basis, or, just sort of being really mindful of the choices that you make on a regular basis, then those long-term impacts will be huge. And
Yeah.
people are very, I think, focused on the instant gratification, but I love the taste of that. I'm going to eat it now. And I'm
Yeah.
guilty of it. We're all guilty
Yeah.
of it, aren't we? We're not all perfect. Um, but it's the general sort of 80-20 rule, isn't it? If 80% of the
Yeah.
time you do things that are really sort of better for you, then you'll have a much better outcome than if it's the reverse. So yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The mindset of people, and I think it doesn't help when we're absolutely surrounded by bad choices and bad
Mhm.
options.
Yeah.
It's a very mindful thing to try and live healthily, whether that's whatever you put on your skin or in your skin. And I've always thought, there are things that we find in our food that we just can't avoid. Yeah, you can't avoid how the product is grown. If it's a plant or something. But so why make the actual active choice to put rubbish on your skin when there are
Yeah.
so many things that you
Yeah.
can't control? It's the
Mm.
one of the few things that you can control.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's great to hear you make that point because that's my approach as well when it comes to food and with these products that yes, we're in this world where it's very difficult to access the healthy choices because
mm,
we have places that we go to shop. You go to your big supermarket, or you might be grabbing a quick lunch, or you might be, doing last minute shopping for your holiday. So you shop at
mm,
the airport. You don't have the healthiest choices that spring out at you, it's the
mm,
unhealthiest ones. But when you do have the choice, it does really make a difference. So
mm,
even if you can't be so good, on holiday when it comes to eating, but you can be prepared in advance and make sure that you've got your, natural sunscreen, or that you've got you're prepared, or you follow a good diet before your holiday, because
yeah,
all of these things do add up and make a difference. Because the moments where your body is vulnerable, where you didn't have the time or the resources, because you did it before mindfully, that has strengthened you and made you more resilient. So you don't
yeah.
so your airplane, as you on your analogy, goes on the path that you want it to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, yeah, it is about taking personal responsibility. And I think a lot of people have started waking up to the fact, I think with things like the NHS in crisis, and,
Mm,
they've realized that actually they can't just 100% rely on somebody else to give them a pill or to fix something.
yeah.
They're going to have to backtrack and go, well, hang on a minute, how can I affect that future? And yeah, I think gradually I do believe that there is a sort of shift happening, and people are becoming a little bit more aware, the and it's interesting, isn't it? Because social media has been a particular driver of
Mm,
people having more awareness and sharing these things between them, whereas before we relied on TV and newspapers and magazines to impart information to
yeah.
ourselves, back in when I was a youth anyway.
Yeah.
And now there's this whole world that's opened up where people can share information and share truths about things, and we are so much more informed, and we can be so much more informed if we choose to be.
Mm,
Information is. literally at our fingertips, like 24/7. So I think there is a definite change in attitude, and people are growing,
Yeah.
far more responsible than they used to be.
Yeah.
At
I
least
mean,
at least in my generation,
yes. Well, I think that, we know that there are downsides to the internet and social media, but one big
Mm,
upside is that we can access information for ourselves,
yes,
whereas before we would have just trusted that the product that we bought, and just believed the claims
mm,
on the bottle or whatever. But now
absolutely,
we
yeah.
can go behind that and make our own decisions, which,
Mm,
I think in the big picture is a good thing.
yeah, it's
Um,
very empowering.
yes.
Mm.
Yeah. And I wanted to as well ask you about the tin. So this is recyclable, is that right? So because how
Yeah,
would people dispose
it's an aluminium
or
tin. It's
yeah,
an aluminium tin, which is, I mean, it's 100% recyclable. But one of the things is we do two sizes. So you can actually, if you buy the little one, which is quite a handy, it's like 15 ml, like lip salve size. I've actually got one here. There we go. This little one. You can
yeah.
actually refill it, up to
Oh
seven
yeah.
times from the big one. So if you want to just go out with something little in your pocket or in your handbag, or it's you can just have that one at home and refill it. And the other beauty of the tin is you can get every last bit out. It's not like the plastic tubes where you always have some stuff left
Yeah.
in the tube and you feel guilty because you're throwing it away, but you can't get rid of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're quite good. And also if they're empty and you don't want to throw it away, or I mean, put it in the recycling, you can always keep it for something else. You can always put other things in it, or hairbands and sorts of things like that. So
Yeah.
it's for all
They are.
things.
It's a very
I
useful
keep
pot.
fuses in mine.
Yeah.
Got fuses in mine, and hairbands and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. And yeah, you're right. You can get everything out of it. I don't know how many times my
Yeah.
kids have come with me to their moisturizer bottle or toothpaste. I can't get the last bit out, and I'm there bashing it
Yeah.
on my hand, trying to
Yeah.
squeeze every last bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But you can just put it in your household recycling and it will just
right,
get recycled. So
yeah, brilliant. That's great. So, gosh, I know that I have learned so much about sunscreens, and I thought I already knew a bit, but
yeah.
thank you so much for explaining all of that. It's brilliant. It's a fantastic product, and this is what I wanted to do with building a community of
Mm,
businesses who are making just simple but effective products like yours, being mindful of human health and the environment. We only have one planet, and I think we often something can be healthy on us, but not healthy in the out, when it's washed down the sink as well. So thank you
mm.
so much
Well, it's
for
a pleasure.
explaining all of that. Before I let you go, though, because at
Yeah.
Hayes Pantry, we're all about food. We love food, and I love telling people to eat more food, just proper meals, basically. Um, do you enjoy cooking, or do you have a favorite cuisine or favorite meal
I
that you
do. I do. Probably don't cook enough, because I'm often here on my own. So it's kind of the incentive to cook isn't so great. But I love it when I have people around. And I do my favorite meal. My favorite cuisine, I suppose, is Thai. Love Thai food. I love the freshness of it. I love the sort of spiciness and the flavors, and so I'd say my favorite meal is actually a Thai green curry. That's just a Thai green vegetable curry. You can feed me that 24/7. I'd be happy as Larry. So yeah, um, and fruit. I love fruit. So
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm with you there with the Thai green curry. Whenever I go to a Thai restaurant, I read the whole menu thinking, what am I going
yeah,
to have? What am I going to have? And I end up with the Thai green curry because it's
exactly.
just the
It's
best.
Yeah, I've tried sort of branching out, but it's never really been the same. I've had to
Yeah.
go back to my Thai green or red generally. Yeah, but it
Yeah.
tends to be green. So
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's great. Yeah, Thai food is fantastic. You can't really go wrong with there. I agree
no,
with you.
exactly.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to draw that to a close. That's all the time we have today. But I hope everyone out there listening really enjoyed today's conversation and got a lot out of it. A big thank you to you, Tania, for making the time for today and for creating your wonderful product, the Shade Natural
Thank you.
Sunscreen. It's fantastic that you've got such a simple, honest alternative to the conventional sunscreens out there. And it's refreshing to hear your story from a founder who's committed to keeping things truly natural. Thank you so much. I will post a link to your website. Actually, you've got 3 websites. We didn't even talk about the other products.
I've got too many websites. So we've got the company website, which is not the norm, which everything is sold on. But I've also got the Shade Cream dedicated website, shadecream.com. And there's another one, which actually I started my business with 25 years ago, or 26 years ago now, which is yamowapowder.com. And again, if you've got people who have got allergies or sensitive skin, which Shade is actually really useful for. If you have people who have hay fever, asthma, any kind of respiratory condition that they're struggling with that is allergic in nature, check out yamowapowder.com. That's all I'm going to say. yamowapowder.com.
I think I'm going to have to do another video.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to do another video on that product because that sounds amazing. I didn't read up about it. Yeah, so maybe, we'll have another chat about that for sure.
Excellent.
So I will put all your websites below this video for everybody to check out. And I definitely recommend to all of you out there to try the sunscreen for sure, because I highly recommend that. And also, if you found this episode helpful, inspiring, or thought-provoking, please do tell a friend and share it. And don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss future episodes. To find out more about me, my work, and how nutritional therapy could help you, visit hayespantry.co.uk. I'll put that link below as well. You can sign up for my newsletter or book a free chemistry call. I would love to hear from you and have a chat. Thanks again so much for being here. I will see you next time. Thank you and bye. That's all from the Hayes Pantry Podcast for now. Remember, what you eat and how you live is who you become. See you next time.